To the Watchman Newscast live stream, closing out the work week with some pretty significant news on the nuclear front vis-a-vis Iran. Now, President Trump has made very clear. He's made the nuclear issue front and center when it comes to Iran. He's made very clear that under no circumstances will he allow Iran to get the bomb. And unlike his predecessors, he actually means it. Joe Biden, Barack Obama, if Iran went nuclear, they would have shrugged and said, well, we can contain them. We'll try to bribe them and appease them, give them billions of dollars. They did that, by the way, and it didn't work. Trump made very clear today, and we'll dig into what he said, but he made very clear that he knows Iran would use the bomb because Mojtaba does not have that gravitas or the clerical or the religious credibility that his father did. And it's interesting because when his father took over for the Ayatollah Khomeini to Khamenei, that's how it worked, in 89, when his father took over, his father was also seen as a clerical novice or not sufficient enough of an Islamic scholar to be the supreme leader. But I think Mojtaba even more so. And by the way, there have been gay rumors swirling around about old Mojtaba, that he's homosexual as well. That's another facet to this in terms of his street cred among jihadis. So I say all that to say, what I'm about to read to you, it says it's from Mojtaba Khamenei, but it was very likely penned by the IRGC. But no matter who actually wrote it, if it's either way, this is the position of the IRGC. And this is the official position of the Iranian government because the IRGC rubber stamped this statement. So here it is. From the J-Post, the Jerusalem Post. The noble Iranian population, just reading this straight from my phone, will safeguard the regime's nuclear and missile technologies as national assets. A speech attributed to Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei said. The speech was read on Iranian state TV and posted on Khamenei's official X account. Quote, Iranians, he said, or the IRGC said, will, quote, safeguard these assets, nuclear and ballistic missiles, just as they do their maritime, land, and airspace borders, he continued. Well, that's interesting because you have no Navy, you have no Air Force, and you have no air defenses left as a result of Operation Epic Fury these past 2 months. But I digress. A new chapter for the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz is unfolding, the statement read, purportedly from Mojtaba Khamenei. Today, he said, it has been proven to not only the global public opinion, but even to the rulers of countries that the U.S.'s presence and establishment in the Persian Gulf is the main source of instability in the region. He went on to threaten U.S. bases. And he said, Iran is the future of the region. We share a common destiny with our neighbors, which is interesting because he spent the past 2 months bombing his neighbors, the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, with drones and missiles and rockets. But the key takeaway here was he vowed to protect Iran's nuclear program at all costs and the missile program. And really, folks, the two go hand in hand. The reason Iran has had such a robust ballistic missile program, including long-range missiles, is so that they can mount those missiles with a nuclear warhead. That's the end game here. So they're not going to give up the nuclear program under any circumstances. It's abundantly clear. Trump knows. And I'll get into his comments on the White House lawn in a minute, what he said to reporters today about Iran's nukes and what Israel's thinking about Iran's nuclear program. It's very clear that if given a sliver of an opportunity, Iran is going to restart their nuclear weapons program. They're not going to stop. They are hell-bent on acquiring the bomb. Nothing will stop them other than military force. And this is not a newsflash for anyone with a shred of common sense. So what you have is a collision course between the regime and President Trump. I'm going to lay out the options in a minute and what the president said today about Iran nuclear and what Israel is saying. Before I do, quick reminder, if you like what you're hearing, breaking news, current events, chiefly from the Middle East and Israel, but we go around the world, Europe, China, Russia, America, and beyond, depending on the news cycle. Be sure to subscribe, click the notification bell so you get alerts every time a new video is posted. Man, we're coming to you most days, weekends as well, during this war as it's ongoing, and military hostilities may ramp up once again very, very soon, I believe. The US and Israel striking Iran hard once again, because the crux of the matter is Iran, under no circumstances, will give up its nuclear program. And President Trump has made abundantly clear, as I said at the top, the main overriding reason that the United States is at war with Iran right now is the nuclear program. So you have a collision course. And there's really not several outcomes here. I think there's only three outcomes, perhaps. One outcome, which is the least savory, obviously, would be that the United States says, you know what, we're done. We're going to agree to a deal with the regime, and it's an unsatisfying deal. There's not, like the Obama deal, for instance, and I doubt this would happen because President Trump pulled America out of Obama's disastrous nuclear deal back in 2018 during his first term. That deal, long story short, there was a sunset clause where Iran could restart its nuclear program after 10 years, enriching uranium. No demands on Iran to quit sponsoring terror like Hamas and Hezbollah, to cease and desist its ballistic missile program. It was a disaster. Nothing about the Strait of Hormuz, absolute disaster. Trump rightly pulled out of it in 2018. So I don't see President Trump agreeing to a repeat of that disastrous deal that he himself pulled out of. But that's one option on the table, that there's a bad deal that enables Iran to continue enriching uranium and to restart their program in 5, 10 years, whatever. That's one option. A second option here is that we see what we're seeing right now. President Trump is resolute, he's steadfast, and he says, we will squeeze you until you come to the table to your knees and surrender. And right now, folks, we've been discussing this to the tune of between $400 and $500 million a day. That's what the regime is losing right now, thanks to the naval blockade. Nothing's getting in Iran, nothing's coming out of Iran. And the oil wells, the oil facilities in Iran are ready to be capped. The oil is essentially, if they can't export oil, it's just sitting there. And the wells are overflowing. The refineries are overflowing with excess oil. There's no place to put it. They have nothing to do with it. That's bad because eventually it becomes unusable and they have to cap the refineries, cap the wells. So this is a disaster for the regime because oil is their economic lifeblood. It is their economy. So they are being, please, I implore you, if you take anything into the weekend or from this live stream, do not listen to the mainstream media, for God's sake, or the Democrat Party here in America or the left globally. Don't listen to Europe. Iran is in a very, very bad place. And it's been 2 months. 2 months. And I hear the term quagmire thrown around by Democrats here in America. It's been 2 months. We were in Afghanistan for 20 years, in Iraq off and on for over 8 years. Maybe throw the term around then. 2 months? It's a quagmire when there's not one U.S. boot on the ground, when we've only had every casualty's bad, but only 13 U.S. casualties? Everyone's horrible, but only 13? In a war against a country of 92 million people, Iran, with the largest ballistic missile program in the entire Middle East and a large military? Quite an accomplishment, wouldn't you say? This is insane. Their entire leadership, practically, political, military, including their Hitler, the supreme leader, Khamenei, eliminated. Their Navy, their Air Force, their air defenses, their economy crushed. Their nuclear program crushed. And yet, the enriched uranium, that's what the concern is. More on that in a minute. And that's a loss for the United States? Why? Because Trump is being wise and being smart and being patient. He said the other day, I've got all day. I'm in no rush. I'll keep the blockade on, and you will be squeezed and squeezed and squeezed some more, Iranian regime, until you cry uncle and come to the table. That's the other option. That just through the blockade itself and the economic noose, Iran caves. Third option, got to start. They're not going to cave because they're insane. They want to be with Allah and 72 virgins. They're going to go out in a blaze of glory and they're not going to compromise. Then comes the military option. And folks, I got to tell you, that is looking increasingly likely from where I sit right now. The military option. And President Trump said today, look, I don't want to do it. I don't want to start bombing again. We've decimated them, but I'd rather not bomb again. But they're leaving me no choice. We're squeezing them. They won't yield, and they're doubling down on nuclear weapons, which is the one thing I told them they can't have. By the way, Iran, the regime, sent the United States a new proposal today. And the proposal was laughable. We don't know all the details. They did it via Pakistan. Pakistan's the mediator here. And apparently it was another laughable proposal by the regime. They want to have their cake and eat it too. Their yellow cake, I should say, for enriched uranium for nuclear program, and eat it too. It's just insane that they're saying we'll have full control of the Strait of Hormuz and you'll drop sanctions first and then we'll think about dropping our nuclear program. It goes on and on. Trump laughed. And I think it's been clear for months, but I think it's becoming even more clear that this regime is non-negotiable because Trump has thrown everything but the kitchen sink at this point, and they're still saying, no, jihad and nukes to the end. But let me correct myself there. He actually has not thrown everything, nor has Israel, but the kitchen sink at the Iranian regime. But I think remember Bridge and Power Plant Day, which Trump threatened? Bridges, power plants, infrastructure. The oil infrastructure on Karg Island. Remember, the U.S. bombed about a month ago the military infrastructure on Karg Island, which is really the main export base for Iran's oil supply. But Trump has held off on bridges, power plants, certain infrastructure. Why? Because he does not want to hurt the Iranian people. Because then the Iranian people suffer. And he wants to leave a nation to the Iranian people to govern a new, God willing, moderate government. Who knows? But Trump wants to give it a shot and say, look, anything's better. Anything's better than these devils that are running Iran right now. I mean, I agree. Anything is better than these demonic modern day Nazis in Tehran right now. So Trump's saying, look, I don't want to flatten the whole country because I want to make it easier for the Iranian people to take power and have some semblance of a standing country and an economy. So he's held off. But the regime is giving him no choice but to unleash hell. Bridges, power plants, and all the rest. I think he's starting to figure out, as President Trump, and I don't want to say starting to figure out. I mean, he's been, as I've documented here in the live stream, look, he's been on top of the Iranian threat for 40-something years, over 40 years. In 1980, he was talking about what he would do about the Iranian regime. 87, 88. Go back and look at the clips. They're online, X, YouTube, you can find them. Trump's been thinking about this for a long, long time. He started to put his strategy into action during his first term, and now he's back to finish the job in his second term against the Iranian regime. So I just think it's an unpleasant option, but I think it's dawning on him that, man, this is the only option. It's the only way, because now we're killing them economically. I mean, 500 million a day. They're bleeding economically. And still they're saying jihad, 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 and nuke, nuke, nuke. And he said today, look, when we spoke to reporters, he said essentially what I'm saying now. He said, look, I don't want to bomb them all day, but they're leaving me no choice. I'm ready to start back up along with Israel. We're ready. And he also said, The main issue seems to be, according to President Trump, at the very top, you've got like 3 or 4 separate factions vying for control and vying for power. And I've talked about 2 of those factions. You've got the political class, if you can use class in the same sentence as these people, Pezeshkian, Galibaf, the parliament speaker, Aragachi, the foreign minister. And then you have the IRGC, of course, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards, who are complete zealots, but they're all zealots. And Trump said today, they're all hardliners. And Secretary Rubio said the same thing. These are all jihadist, hardline, apocalyptic fanatics who think, again, the 12th Imam, the Mahdi, that's their Messiah figure. If I don't want to lose you. The Mahdi, M-A-H-D-I, also known as the 12th Imam. In their Shiite eschatology, this is what they believe. He's going to reemerge at the end in a time of great global calamity. He's going to be accompanied by Jesus. Interesting nugget there. They believe Jesus will be the Mahdi's wingman. He's going to slaughter all the Jews and the Christians, and the Iranian regime and Iranian forces will be the tip of his spear to do it. They all really believe this stuff, and they're shaping policy around it. And that's why they're not yielding, because they're fanatics. So there's just different calculations among these fanatical factions. The political class says, well, maybe we should do a deal because we've got to try and govern this country and we don't want the economy to collapse. And elements of the IRGC say, if the economy collapses, that means chaos, and that means a greater chance for the Mahdi to return. Remember, the Mahdi can't come back in a time of peace. The Mahdi, their Messiah, only comes back at a time of great global calamity. The Mahdi will save us. Let the economy collapse. The Mahdi will return and save us. Folks, this is what you're dealing with. Again, they are non-negotiable, are the mad mullahs. They're fanatics. And the last time America fought fanatics in a major war, Germany, Japan, the Nazis were fanatics. The Japanese regime, fanatical. They had to be utterly crushed, devastated, demolished, and then we could start anew. So I think it's becoming very clear that this regime must be utterly crushed. Not the Iranian people, key distinction, this regime must be crushed. And that's what President Trump was talking about. And I think he probably misspoke unintentionally, but we tweeted about 2 weeks ago, an entire civilization is about to be destroyed. He didn't mean the great Persian civilization or the Iranian people. He meant the regime, their, if you can call it a civilization, their radical Islamic death cult that's been in charge for the past 47 years. That's what he meant. That has to go decisively. Even remnants of this regime in power, this thing's incomplete in my view. When the dust settles, if the regime, some remnant, whatever's left of it, is still in power, now granted, it may only be for a short time. And I think it's inevitable that they collapse. But they need to be decisively crushed, or you'll be back over there. And President Trump has said this. You'll be back over there in 5 or 10 years, destroying their new nuclear facilities because they're not going to stop. They're fanatics. This is what they do. Evil is relentless, folks. And evil must be crushed, or it will continue to come and come and come and rear its head. It never stops because it's demonically driven. It's a spiritual battle at the end of the day. Know what time it is here. It must be crushed. This regime must be crushed. Israel knows that very well. And Israelis, last thought here as we talk about the nuclear program. Okay. Israel's been very clear that the nuclear facilities are destroyed. The U.S. took care of that Operation Midnight Hammer. There was some follow-up over the past 2 months as well by Israel and the U.S. on the nuclear facilities. They're destroyed. And Israel also says Iran doesn't have the capacity right now to restart the nuclear program or their missile program. What you see is what you get. Their factories have all been destroyed, warehouses. They're not rolling anything off the assembly lines now. A month from now, that might be different as they try to frantically rebuild. But the Israelis are very concerned, and I believe President Trump is as well, about that enriched uranium. Now, it seems to be buried under the rubble of Isfahan and those other Natanz, those other destroyed nuclear sites that the U.S. took out in June, and that Israel and the U.S. took out a bit more over the past 2 months. But the nuclear sites devastated, but the enriched uranium remains. And the concern is that Iran's going to eventually get under the rubble and get at that uranium and put it into use once again. They're not going to stop, folks. I can guarantee if the regime is still in place and the enriched uranium is still in place, if the regime is allowed to stay in power and the uranium isn't forcibly removed, I mean, I can't guarantee anything, but it's a pretty good bet that they're going to eventually, when they think the world's not looking, try to grab that uranium and start their nuclear program again. They can't help themselves because they're demonic. This is what they do. It's their sole rationale for being. This is why they exist. Take away demonic activity, and then it's not the Iranian regime. It's not Hamas. It's not Hezbollah. This is why Hamas and Hezbollah will not disarm. They must be forcibly disarmed because this is who they are. The New Testament talks about God giving people over to a reprobate mind. Long ago, Iran and its ring of fire, its Axis, its proxies were given over to that reprobate mind. They're pure evil, unadulterated, and they must be crushed. Or else there will be more October 7ths, more rockets, missiles, and more nuclear weapons development. So these are the options that lie ahead. I don't think it would be beyond the realm of possibility over the next few days to see military action start back up. I think when it does start back up, and I said when, not if, unless, hey, maybe I'll be shocked. Maybe we'll all be shocked. I can't say anything with certainty. Maybe we'll be shocked, and maybe the economic pressure will finally drive them to their knees. It is driving them to their knees, that's without a doubt, but drive them to some form of sanity and surrender, I should say, just rephrasing that a bit. Maybe we'll be shocked. Maybe they will respond to the economic pressure and the blockade and say, okay, we've had enough. We'll wave the white flag. But folks, I got to tell you, based on their track record, the regime, it seems the military option will be the only way at the end of the day. I hope I'm wrong, but I find it unlikely that these fervent, apocalyptic, jihadist madmen are going to agree to give up their nuclear weapons program without a strong push in that direction by the U.S. and Israel. Great being with you today. If anything happens over the weekend, we'll come to you. So make sure to subscribe, click the notification bell, because if we come to you this weekend, you'll get the alert if we're coming. Keeping a very close eye on everything happening. Until next time, have a great weekend. God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Watchman Newscast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an upload, and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. And don't forget to share your thoughts, insights, and comments below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.